Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I want to revisit something here that I covered years and years ago. It was the videos that made my channel relevant. Michelle Obama, one was called 95% Michelle Obama is a Dude, which I'll talk about that video in a bit. And the follow-up video that I made was called A-List Celebrities Who Had to Put on a Dress. And this is back in 2014, the end of December 2014, beginning of 2015, and my channel just took off after that. And I would remake those videos if I could for a couple of reasons. One, I make better videos now, and I'm a better person in terms of my not only what I do here, but my understanding of what's going on. But also, there are things that have changed, right, in our society that back, at least in some ways, maybe not totally validate my original videos, but certainly makes this a stronger case that I was right about these things, at least in terms of my understanding of them. So this is Martha Washington. Now, Marsha looks kind of like a dude there, right? I mean, I'm not saying she is, but kinda, right? And it's just not that picture, this picture here, these portraits, right? That looks kind of like a dude. And these are, these were paintings, and I don't know how much the emphasis they put on accuracy, but they probably made Martha look a little bit more feminine than she actually did, right? These paintings weren't, hit jobs. They were, they were painters they hired to present a likeness. I mean, they kind of probably knew that this was going to be something that was going to be around for a while, George Washington being the first president of the United States, right? And so, Martha looks kind of dudeish. And years later, after I made those videos, there was a movie that came out called Filth. And it starred James McAvoy as a Scottish policeman who was a big part of the movie was Freemasonic rituals, the Scottish rite of the Freemasons, and Freemasonry and this character were woven together. And he dressed up like a woman on several occasions, and this was a part of it. And, I have come to learn since that time that the Freemasons, this is part of their thing, right? Dressing up like women. Of course, George Washington was a Freemason. And I'm not saying this is just about Freemasonry, but there's a link there. So what happened was I got these pictures, all these old pictures of Michelle Obama, and I'll get to Jennifer Aniston as well. And so there was a video put out by a couple, and one of the couple claimed that maybe the husband was a part of a forensics team or something to do with, it was involved with the police. Maybe the wife was, and they had criteria for identifying men and women, and I can't, remember the specifics about it. But they put out this video demonstrating that they thought Michelle Obama was a man. And I watched the video as a goof. This goes back to 2014, right? And I watched it as a goof. And, it was, some of the things were based in so-called science. One of them was that the ring finger in men was longer than the index finger, I think it was. And, I looked into it, and there was at least one study done with rats and these things about the length of the index finger. And there was some, there's some relevance to it being, the study was about people as well. Again, I don't remember the specifics about, but there was some science backing this, right? The difference between men and women and how you could tell. But, those things didn't prove to be as conclusive as I thought back then. But I investigated this myself, and I found that there was, whatever it was, like 95% of the cases in this one study where the index finger was longer. But I had lots of women commenting who were biological women saying that their index finger was longer, the ring finger was longer than their index finger, whatever it was, right? I can't, And so that wasn't actually, as far as I could tell, accurate, right? And then there was like a young woman who was like, she had broad shoulders and she had a index finger, and she was always, she was always, ashamed of the way that she looked, and she thought she looked manly, and then, the video didn't help her and whatever it was, right? It was, one of my first videos about this kind of thing. And it certainly wasn't my best work. And one of the things I realized was that when I was looking through pictures of Michelle Obama, and I found the folder of those pictures, and I'll show you those pictures in a moment. And I realized afterwards, when I thought about it, that I took pictures that made her look manly, right? There were pictures that she didn't look as manly in, and I didn't show those pictures. I favored the ones that supported my video, which, was fundamentally, at least in some ways, dishonest, right? Because you're gaming the evidence to make your point. And that's, what the mainstream media does. And so I wasn't really all that happy with that video, but it took off. And because it was, it was not as good as some of my other stuff and as balanced, I ended up getting like 2 million views or something like that. And my channel took off from there. And, it had some accurate information in there. And, of course, the way things have played out back this. But then there was a guy that came out, and he made crappy videos. I think the guy was named Mr. E or something. I don't know if he's still around. But he made crappy videos. It's a dude. Just whatever. And I kind of regretted my participation in this because, like all things in the truth community, it gets goofy and the stupid people come in. And then they make dumbed down videos and they get lots of views, but it isn't, it's just subpar. It's just poor quality. But there is some truth to it. And the second thing was, when I was, the man hands thing was part of it. And I remember there was a movie that Jennifer Aniston made called Picture Perfect. And it featured her wearing a skull ring that was very prominent in the movie. And it was weird for her character. And, this is back when she was young. And when I looked at it, and it was the only video I had made because my ex and I had watched this movie years and years ago. And I was looking at it, I'm like, wow, there's a skull ring. It looks it's an odd movie. And there was all this other stuff in the movie that was like Illuminati stuff. Just a goofy romantic comedy, Jennifer Aniston movie. But I remember she had man hands. And when I started doing the Michelle Obama video, I was like, well, I remember this thing with Jennifer Aniston. And like she did have these kind of man hands and whatever it was. But like I said, it's inconclusive. And then also Serena Williams, who I think is either, born a biological male or taken steroids or something. And I don't know how she's gotten away with it, given, what they do in international competition. But her physique and her muscle mass and things. And so I covered this in a video. And again, like I said, it wasn't my best work. And I don't know if any of the three of them are actually men. And, I don't know. And I at this point, don't care. But if you go back and think, well, if Martha Washington was a dude, right? And based on the pictures, that's at least a possibility. The portraits, these paintings. And this is a thing, a lot of these people were Freemasons, a lot of these, historical figures. And there's a element of dressing up like women in Freemasonry. Of course, the old acting, all the actors in England were, the Shakespearean actors were men in drag. And there's a manly element to this thing. Either the First Lady, being actually a man, like some historical references to this. And let's look at this one video clip of Michelle Obama with LeBron James in the White House.
Hi everyone, I'm Eric Spoelstra of the Miami Heat and a member of the NBA Fit team. I'm here today at the White House to find out why eating healthy can help you perform like a champion.
Well, I eat fruits and vegetables.
So, there's LeBron James, who show you Flobron in a moment.
If we're going to do this switch, we got to do it all the way, Flobron.
Ready.
Are you? think so.
You think so, or you know so?
I think I know so.
Or you think, what was I saying? Did you start the conversation?
I think so.
Good talk, Flobron.
Flobron. So, that's what he had to do for Progressive Insurance. Progressive Insurance. But this is when the Miami Heat were winning championships, and Michelle Obama was the first lady, in air quotes, allegedly. And they had this campaign called "Let's Move" to get kids more active, which positive thing, especially now, as we know, with kids being on the screen so much.
Every day because it gives me the energy I need to perform at the top of my game.
Thanks, Dwayne. What about you, Ray?
Drinking water is an important part of my pregame routine so I can stay focused
This Chris Bosh thing is cringeworthy.
and refreshed. And you can take it from me. Eating the right foods can help make you a better athlete.
And so there is some images you've already seen, which I forgot about. And there was some video leaked in some hotel of Barack Obama working out. And the video, he was like in a hotel fitness room, and there was cameras there, and the Secret Service and his, he had a top-notch publicity team. And this thing here, right? Let's watch that again. She goes, "Oh, right." What's that here? She dunks on the thing. So, being very masculine there, right? And the video was leaked at the same time. There was some images put out of Michelle Obama playing football, kickboxing, and doing other things. And Barack Obama was yawning and disinterested, using light weights. I mean, the video's even more damaging than I just had the images because I was technologically didn't have the ability to screen grab things like that. But the video was pretty embarrassing, right? So here he is. I got it now. There he is, like with these light weights and walking around disinterested, doing some lunges, right? Yawning and just looking disinterested. He had this top-notch, publicist and, his brand and all these things. And I found it very suspicious they leaked this tape, right? That this was allowed to happen. And it doesn't seem like he's got Secret Service around. I don't know who that guy is who's working out there. And, it makes him look not great, right? At the same time, this was released for Michelle Obama, who's using bigger weights. She's boxing and doing this, right? All of this stuff, right? This Give Me Five thing that she had going on. And she's, it seemed like they were almost intentionally trying to emasculate the guy. She often ran him down in public, said things about him, and, and it was like she was, again, the more masculine of the two of them. Like that's something that they seem to be doing intentionally. I cover this all the time with the feminist agenda and where women are beating up men regularly in action movies now. Superheroes, secret agents, oftentimes they're models. They weigh 130, 120 pounds, whatever. Skinny, unathletic. And they beat up guys that weigh 150 pounds more than them, and they're men with, more dense bone structure, all the rest of it. And they have this thing now with this Amazonian type of situation where women are more physically dominant than men. And that's been an agenda for a while, and they push this agenda with the Obamas. And they can say whatever they want, whatever reason it was done. This was not just like one-off where there was a few things that happened. They pushed Michelle Obama as like a warrior woman throughout the presidency, and they're still doing it now. The other thing was they featured Michelle Obama's arms. Her arms were constantly being talked about, what great arms she has. And she was often flexing and doing that stuff, right? So it was like a thing. But then when this sort of idea was put out there that she might actually be a dude, there was all this pushback, something that they promoted themselves, right? And again, I'm not saying anything. Like I don't care at this point. But, people are going to believe what they want to believe. And there's no, there's some evidence, some bulging and different things in this, stuff. But they promoted her as being kick-ass, physical, strong, and masculine, right? She comes across as masculine quite often. And so, this is something that they did. This was part of their publicity and what they were pushing out there. Because of this, me covering and making this video about Michelle Obama and Jennifer Aniston and Serena Williams, this came up. Somebody sent me this. I don't know how it did. But Dave Chappelle said this, right?
I mean, I'm a conspiracy theorist to a degree. Like, when I connect dots that maybe shouldn't be connected, I don't know. But certain dots, like when I see that they put every black man in the movies in a dress at some point in their career, I'll be connecting them down like, wow, these brothers got to wear a dress. This happened to me. I'm doing a movie with Martin.
Yeah.
So, this kicked off I'm going to talk about this in terms of Alan Rickson, the guy who plays Reacher. He said that he was in a photo shoot and he got sexually booped by a photographer and was set up, and he was groomed, and he worked as a male model for years, and it was a constant whatever's going on, right? And recently Cat Williams said in his interview with Shannon Sharp that all these guys in Hollywood have to perform sexual acts to get where they are, right? It goes far beyond the black community. And I covered this before, so I'm revisiting this now because there's some validation of this, right?
The movie's going good. So I walk in the trailer. I'm like, man, this must be the wrong trailer because there's a dress in here.
Oprah.
They come in. The writer comes in. I think he's the writer. He's like, Dave, listen, we got this hilarious scene where Martin's sneaking out of jail. So he disguises you as a prostitute. And he put this dress on. And what? A prostitute? No, I'm not doing that. I don't feel comfortable with that. That should have been.
And so he says he wouldn't do that. But he already had, right? There was this Robin Hood men in tights, and there he is wearing a dress in that movie. These guys are all dressing up like women. So he already done it, right? They already got him.
Have been in a discussion. What? You don't feel comfortable with it? I mean, it's a hilarious bit. All the greats have done it. So, well, if all the greats have done it, it's kind of hacky, right? You're right. So why don't we just not do it? Because I don't feel comfortable wearing a dress. Oh, come on, Dave. Listen, we got it all set up. We're supposed to shoot. Every minute you waste costs this much money. The pressure comes in. He said, I'm not wearing no dress, man. I'm funnier than a dress. Just give me something funny to say.
So, again, he already did it, right?
I don't need to wear no dress to be funny. What am I, Milton Berle? We're going like this. And then finally...
Milton Berle was an old white Jewish comedian, and he often dressed up in drag. There was this guy, Flip Wilson, black comedian, when I grew up. And this had already been done, right? There's a picture of John Wayne. I'll show you John Wayne putting on. There's all these A-list celebrities that had to do this, right? It's like a rite of passage.
He's like, and he leaves, and then like the director comes, Dave, it really would be great if you wear the dress. What is wrong? What is this, Brokeback Mountain in here? So then, wear the dress. I don't want to wear the dress. I want to wear this dress. This is, oh gosh, this guy's so difficult.
All right, so he says he didn't do it, but we know he already did. Then Kevin Hart said that he would never put on a dress.
And we talked about this theme going around in the black community about black comedians wearing dresses. Yeah. You went on SNL and did the...
So he had said before he would never do that.
9-year-old Oscar nominee, Convention Wallace.
Wow.
And Saturday Night Live always gets these guys, right? they've gotten Robert De Niro, people like that, and then, athletes, and oftentimes they have an athlete on. I think they did with Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. And they just get them. If they can't get them in a movie, they'll get them on Saturday Night Live in a sketch. So this is from Will Ferrell's. This is Jimmy Fallon Tonight Show. But they always get these guys at Saturday Night Live. So many men have had to put on dresses to do a sketch in Saturday Night Live. It's like, it's a thing, right? And so this is interesting. You have two men wearing dresses and Michelle Obama. So here it is with Will I Am, and they are putting on dresses together. Here he is with John. Here he is with John Cena.
Okay.
Know what? You're the smartest and super cool smiley face. Ew! Ew, he totally likes you!
Really?
Yeah.
Not funny, right? And they got John Cena. They got Channing Tatum. They got Channing Tatum good, right? And so this is an ongoing theme. So anyways, I ended up looking into not just African American comedians and actors, but also A-list actors in general. And I saw over and over again pretty much every one of them. I think there was like Jack Nicholson, and he played the devil. And I think Tom Cruise were the two. I couldn't find images of them dressing up like women. But I think Tom Cruise also played the devil. Maybe Al Pacino too. And he played the devil. So it's like, you either had to play the devil or dress up like a woman or both. In the case of Will Smith, because he did both. Will Smith, they got really great. They got him a lot. He had a scene in Wild Wild West where he did he was grinding on Kevin Kline and the guy who was playing the president at the time, and he was wearing a belly dancing outfit. Will Smith, they got a number of times. Of course, we know about Will Smith and all these rumors about him I've covered on various channels, about him being with a long-term relationship with his friend there, whatever his name is. And then his recent, his former assistant came out and said that they were, I covered this before, that he was being murdered from behind by this guy with Dwayne Martin, But anyways, I have these pictures here that I just came up with today. I had a whole folder of these things, but there's all these A-list celebrities that had to put on a dress, and that is documentable, right? Michelle Obama being a man or any of these other, these famous women. Again, history of, men dressing up like women in the Shakespearean times and the stuff to do with Freemasonry. And, there's something there. But it got goofy. Like, they were just, it's a man, it's a dude. There's just, it's a man. Like, it was a whole thing. And I regretted my participation in this. I was one of the founders of this thing, right? In terms of, like, somebody made a video about this, and then and that video ended up being banned or deleted early on when such things weren't happening, right? Like, there wasn't so much community guidelines things back in 2014 or 15, so my video was, the second video of this type about Michelle Obama and then this other thing that was going on. And that got, like I said, 2 million views, and it was, again, not my best work, but there's something there, but it isn't, what people have made it into. But there is something, because we now know in terms of this pushing of there's such transgender agenda here where they're pushing this and pushing for trans rights, and they're saying all kinds of things about this that, would lead you to believe that there's a Hollywood morality that's been around, like an elitist morality, that the average people, people in the mob would be, disgusted by and rebel against, right? And it's taken a while, but now with the internet and with the pushing of these things and the degradation of our system, this Holly morality is now being pushed on all levels. and it stems from the Hollywood and the modeling industry, the acting world, and these things. And it kind of confirms, at least to some degree, that this stuff exists, right? And you have celebrities coming out and talking about Alan Rickson, saying that he was basically sexually abused not only by a male photographer, but by some woman that he was partnering with. He's a married man, and she said if he didn't, have sex with her, she was going to Me Too him and say that he abused her. And so he tried to commit suicide, hang himself, like I just covered this on my other channel. And so this kind of brought all this stuff back up, and we've heard what Dave Chappelle had to say, and I covered Cat Williams talking about this throughout that interview about what these guys have to do to get their fame. And there's always talk about the Me Too stuff with Harvey Weinstein and this idea of a casting couch. And I said this before, and I just talked about this in my other video, that there is these really rich people, who many of whom have deviant type of sexual behaviors and desires and things, but they didn't have access to young women or men or children, and so that this Hollywood creation where they would be the gatekeepers between something that they had access to, which was their money and stardom and fame, and what these children and young men and young women wanted to have. And they put themselves in a position to where they could leverage this dream of being a celebrity to extract whatever kind of sexual behavior they could out of these people. And we know this it's been well documented in Amy Berg's An Open Secret, which I've talked about. And, there was a documentary about kids being abused in Hollywood, and we know this has happened. That's pretty obviously happened, and I've covered this with the stuff with Full House. And then, of course, all the young women that came out, that Harvey Weinstein and this stuff that was happening in the Hollywood casting couch, which is well known. But there are a lot more, in terms of men in the Hollywood and modeling industry that are gay or are attracted to, men or whatever it is, boys. There are a lot more of them than there are Harvey Weinsteins. And so, all these A-list male celebrities, they are, put in the same position, right? And at least we know they have to wear dresses because you see it over and over again. You think of any celebrity, and you'll find that there's the time and they had to put on a dress. And like I said, this agenda has moved forward since I covered this back in 2015. 2015 is when they started to come out, with Caitlyn Jenner and these things. And then all of a sudden gender is up and they're talking about gender in a different way. And this is, anything that's critical of this is considered hate speech. And so, you've seen what's happened here, right? Like there's been a movement towards that, and that's undeniable as well. And so, there's obviously an agenda here. Like, the details aren't important. Like, is every female actress a man? Well, probably not, right? But are they manly? Manly, yes. Like this is this whole idea with superhero women and, getting women who are more physically buff and more masculine. They're pushing that. Are they pushing for men to be more feminine? Certainly. That's there as well, right? So whatever it is, wherever the truth is, clearly there's an agenda here. I mean, it just comes up over and over again. Like I said, it grew distasteful because everything in the truth community ends up going towards a more stupid or dumbed down direction. And in terms of my understanding and my video making, I became smarter and more sophisticated and more, you have to hold yourself to a certain standard of what kind of content you're going to put out. Like at some point, you realize you don't want to be like mainstream media and just be clickbaiting and being sensationalistic and things like this just to get views and making false claims and exaggerating things, which is what the QBs did and what the It's the Man people did, and it wrecked the truth community. And it gave them, the people who run the system, some, ability to downgrade and degrade what was happening in the truth community by saying, look at all these fake, false claims that are being put up there, right? And so, like sensationalizing something that doesn't need to be sensationalized because there's an agenda here and it isn't a good one, right? And like I talk about spirituality and connecting people to God and the natural, sort of human behaviors and things that go with that, right? And the morality and the sacrifice and this is big ego stuff, right? All these things are to do with the ego. Celebrity culture is to do with the ego. And then all these perversions of the ego and, perverted desires of the ego that pushes these kind of agendas and these kind of, movements when there's a simplicity and a naturalness that goes with being connected to God. An innocence and a purity that they're trampling all over. And so this is, obviously, you could call this demonic or devil worshiping as well. And, they're able to push it through now and silence people who talk about it. And so there's something there, right? There's a reason for it, like whatever it is, right? And, you have people who, like I said, Christians and people in the right wing who just get stupid about it and don't realize that you don't have to be over the top and try to, these people want to throw stuff in their faces of other people, put like dramatic things in there and sometimes make up things and try to sensationalize stuff that doesn't need to be sensationalized because, it's pretty bad, right? Like this is, if you think about, I've talked about our stories being so important, people's stories, the stories of humanity being important. And, it's in every culture, your stories make up your internal world. Like sitting around the campfire in some Aboriginal tribal situation and learning about myths and legends, and it teaches you and creates your internal world, your kids playing and imagining things and things. And what's inside your internal world being imperative that it be aligned with the divine, your soul's goals and your soul's energy and your soul's purpose and things here. And that's not what's happening. The stories that we have from Hollywood, and now it just has gotten worse and more depraved and, more twisted and pushing all these woke agenda stuff or, trans agenda stuff or agenda to do with feminism and things. And it ends up warping people, and these young people are growing up with this, and they see things on social media, and they don't know what's what, right? They don't have a family, they don't have any guiding principles. I mean, religion isn't great, and I've talked about the problems with religion, but at least there are some good things in religion that help build your character and morality. But they don't know about, there's no right and wrong anymore, right? They've blurred the lines, and there's just people lost and depressed and with the inability to understand what's their purpose here in life, and and they don't really have it. I mean, back when it was hedonism and your economic prowess and getting an education so you could make more money, that wasn't great. But now it's even worse, and these kids are just growing up in these cyber worlds, and it's blurred between what's in the real world and what's going on in their cyber life, and all this stuff, right? It's a degradation of the human system. And when you think about it all this way, then when I talk about there needs to be a collapse of the civilization to give an opportunity for a spiritual upliftment, this meditation that I do, that connecting the divinity within you is imperative in terms of, rebuilding all these things. But anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse. And I just want to add one thing. I did some other, activities, and coming back to this, just had a few more thoughts to add to this. In retrospect, right? This is a retrospective of something I covered years ago, and I moved away from, and, really don't want much of a part of. It's a movement that kind of got real popular and then got stupid and then got annoying and then died out. But as soon as they started to push this agenda, again, right after I started covering this, and I don't want to say one of the first people to do this, cover this, whatever this is, right? They really pushed trans rights, and if you look at the LGBTQ, the trans people have gained the most support. A demographic in the gay community that was never really talked about, right? Was not very prevalent, not very much represented. I mean, when they talked about gay rights, it was nothing to do with this, right? And now that's the number one most supported group. And so the powers that be have jumped over, like women, like biological women, have jumped over various peoples of colors. All these groups that are a part of, these disenfranchised groups that are, claim to be marginalized and, are marginalized to whatever extent, jumped over the other letters in the LGBTQ, jumped over all them, and now is getting more support than anybody, right? This is something Dave Chappelle said in his comedy routine, that he wished that blacks were getting this kind of support, that the transgender people were. So the powers that be are pushing this, whatever reason it is, right? But it seems like something they've been into now for maybe hundreds of years, part of the Freemasonic order or whatever, I don't know. All these things I've showed you here. And again, I just don't really care that much about it, but this Alan Rickson thing came up, where he said he was basically AR'd by a photographer. Alan Rickson, you can see my other video on my other channel that led to this, but he went to a photo shoot. The guy's like 6'5", 250, muscle-bound guy that's huge in the, big physical, violent in the Reacher series. And he let this photographer have his way with him. And it caused so much psychological damage, he recently tried to hang himself. And he's got a wife and 3 kids, and now he's a successful actor, right? I mean, that, Reacher 2 was horrible. But aside from that, he's successful now. And he, and all these guys have to pay this price. And it just makes sense. So a area that's very deviant sexually, it has this morality, all these things that people bring up, that there's these ideas, everyone's a dude. It's a dude, it's a guy, right? Or, this thing that happened. All these things, they've gotten ridiculous in the truth community, and the truth community always goes and, like I said, it starts off with some legitimacy and then becomes stupid and then just is annoying. But they can't say that there's no evidence supporting all of these things, right? I'm not saying, what's true and what's not true, because I don't care, and I'm not going to get to the bottom of the rabbit hole, and I don't cover this stuff anymore. The whole civilization is collapsing around us, which I talk about, quite a bit, and only spirituality will save us, right? I mean, that's what that connecting to God internally is the only way for humanity to redeem itself and pull itself out of this free fall of, everything, stupidity and idiocracy and immorality and just selfishness and entitlement and just all these low egotistical behaviors. The only way to get through this is to create saints, right, to have saintly behavior. And it's a solution that I believe is readily possible if people have to choose it, and that's pretty unlikely at this point. But what I'm saying here is, and I say this about the so-called conspiracies that are out there, and these things that are out there that accusations against the people that run the system, they're all believable because they give us lots of evidence to show that at least these things are possible. As crazy as they may sound, at least they're possible, right? Because they're the ones who are, engaging in these types of behaviors and attitudes, and they have these kind of morals and ethics, and these are their beliefs. And when you say something about their beliefs, they're like, no, that's not true. Because if you look at the Christian, you look at right-wing Christians who were anti-gay, right? And you'd have some of these Christian families bring their gay kids to these reprogramming centers or whatever they were called, right? And they would try to turn the kids straight, right? And the rallying call by the gay community was born this way. That they couldn't help it, they were just born this way. Which I believe to some extent, because of what I believe in terms of some scaras, impressions from a past life. I believe that that's, part of it. But sexual abuse also plays a role in this. I work with teenage sex offenders, and they, many of them had been sexually abused as kids. And like there was one client I had who said that he was sexually abused by men, and he was wondering why, if that was why he was attracted to men, right? Because of his abuse. And, I don't, and no one else really knows the answer to all these things, right? But there is a complex, often abuse is a part of the childhoods of people with these types of, these types of personalities. But they said they were born this way. And like I said, I believe in samskaras, so I believe that that's, and whatever I've seen, oftentimes you see kids who are effeminate at a very young age. So I believe the born this way is, partially true. But now they're saying everyone's a little bit gay. It's normal to be gay, and being cisgender and being heterosexual is abnormal. And it's abnormal to be in a monogamous relationship. These are things that are coming out, right? These are the new beliefs that are out there. And so they went from saying born this way to everybody's like this, and everyone's just been suppressing their true nature. That people are naturally polyamorous or, whatever it is, right? That's what they're saying. Like there's various, scientific studies backing this. And, so you take these conservative Christians who said, you're just trying to push this on everybody. And they were told, no, don't worry about it. We're just saying, that we were born this way and we want to have our own little communities. We just want to be respected. We just want everyone to treat us like human beings and, just, allow this to happen. And, you'll see that we're not a threat to you. But now you're seeing they're pushing this agenda on their kids, right? Many of these conservative Christian kids are getting indoctrinated to this, way of thinking on YouTube and these other places. And it's, not cool to say one thing and say, no, this is what we really believe. And then, it's like a bait and switch, right? And that's a part of it. And like, it's not affecting me. Like, I don't, whatever. But I see it happening and I've seen it happening. And, it's driving conservatives and people crazy. And part of it's because it's now being forced on their kids and everyone else, right? They're trying to force all this stuff on us with whether it be the pronouns or any of these other things. They want us to participate. It isn't just like they're saying, we have different beliefs than yours and we can just respect our beliefs. They want us to change our behaviors and change what we believe and what we see internally. Like if we see a person that we would call him or her, we're supposed to change that internally, what we believe they are, based on what they're saying they believe they are, right? And, that's not cool. They're changing language, they're changing all these things. It's, and it's the same thing they complained about. It's oppressive, right? They're saying, we want to be able to believe what we believe about ourselves and our identities and these things. But we also want to have you believe those things too, or make you believe those things, or just force you to go along with it. And, in some, if you don't go along with it, you're going to call you names and whatever it is, right? And that's just, that's the same thing they've been complaining about for years in terms of being oppressed by heterosexual people, right? And so, there's that. My wife and I were watching a reality TV show. I think it was this, it's kind of a murder thing, like a survivor does a murder, is in a castle, I don't know. It was kind of interesting in a different way. But there was a character on there who was non-binary. And the character themselves called themselves, me and her. I used regular pronouns, right? But the other cast members addressed this person as they, them. When they were talking about the person, because when they're talking to the person, they'd call the person their name, right? And so the pronouns are for you to use when that person isn't there, right? When someone says, I want you to use they, them pronouns, well, you're not going to say they, them to them, and it's confusing, right? It's not how language, they want to rearrange language and change the way that we use language, which is a big deal, and we're not getting a say or vote on it, right? But they want you, when the person's not there, if you're having a conversation about that person, to use they, them. And, Demi Lovato went back on her pronouns. They want to be able to change their pronouns whenever they feel like it, which is a disaster, right? I've talked about this, with women, that every man has probably experienced this with at least one woman in his life, where a woman will tell you the way they want you to do something, right? And I'm sure men do this as well, but it's something I associate more with women. And men know what I'm talking about here, and women probably do too. And the woman is very specific about training the man to do something a certain way. But something happens internally with the woman, and she doesn't want you to do that anymore, whatever it is, right? Or she doesn't want you to say something a certain way, or doesn't want you. She wants you to, she no longer wants you to do what she's told you she wanted to do. But she doesn't tell you that. And so you go on like, because you just men are stupid and just want to be trained, just tell us what to do, right? And not all men are cooperative, but like smart men are, right? You learn that most of the things you don't even care about. So you might as well do the things the way the women in your life want you to do them. Why not do that? Because it's not that, it's not any extra effort. It's certainly less effort than dealing with trauma and these things. So you're told to do a certain thing a certain way, but the woman in your life, especially if it's your spouse or something, has changed her mind and she hasn't told you, and then gets mad at you for doing something that she's told you, I wanted you to do it a certain way. My ex, I had to deal with this all the time, and they get mad at you because you haven't figured out what's going on inside of them and adjusted this, within yourself, and you're like, yeah, I don't have the capability to do that, right? That men don't have the capability. We can be intuitive, but nothing like that, right? And so that's the same type of thing that's being asked of people now, that they use the they, them pronouns when the person isn't even there. And so that person saying, I want you to, to accommodate me even when I'm not even in your presence, right? Even if you don't agree with it or don't believe it or don't share the same beliefs about, all these types of things, right? About what's going on internally with other people. And so, it's really messed up. And it's just going to get more. Like this isn't going back in the bottle. And there's just always going to be more and more pushback and more anger on the other side. And it's, very volatile. Like so many other things. There's so much division right now. And they're pushing for that. We know the powers that be are doing this purposefully. That, when things go south, people are already so wound up in disliking other demographics that, there's not going to be any chance of cooperation to deal with the apocalyptic collapse of our system. It's just, that's becoming more and more obvious, right? And these things are all signs of that. The apocalypse. And the old who, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing to the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.